Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the Work in Mind, Workplace Mental Health and Mental Illness Stigma Reduction Program. My name is Yusra Benjeloun, Administrative Coordinator and Project Manager with the Work Wellness Institute, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. We thank our academic team and our 9 founding partner organizations in the Harnessing Talent project. Harnessing Talent, Alliance for Recruiting and Retaining Canadians with Disabilities and Mental Health Challenges, is a 3-year project funded by Employment and Social Development Canada. This webinar is made possible through the support of the nations and memberships to WWI. We thank our advisory committee and speakers who contribute to this webinar series. While we're waiting for others to join us, I'll go over a few technical points for the webinar. You should be able to hear the presentation through your computer speakers or through the conference call line if you dialed in. Please use the question box to submit any issues you may be experiencing, any comments you may have, and any questions related to the webinar. We will collect questions submitted throughout the webinar and follow it with a Q&A based on the questions submitted. The Work Wellness Institute is recognized by the Society for Human Resources Management, SHRM, to offer professional development credits. This program is valid for 1 PDC for SHRM CP or SHRM SCP. Our institute also offers accreditation recognized by the Vocational Rehabilitation Association VRA Canada. If you're a WWI member or a VRA Canada member, you receive free certificates of attendance. Otherwise, there is a $15 administration fee. We're honored to welcome Dr. Andrew Szeto and Micheal Pietrus. Dr. Andrew Szeto is currently the Director of the Campus Mental Health Strategy at the University of Calgary, responsible for guiding the implementation of the 28 recommendations within the University of Calgary Mental Health Strategy. He is also a principal investigator at the Mental Health Commission of Canada and an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Calgary. Over the past 8 years, Dr. Szeto has focused on the evaluation of workplace mental illness, anti-stigma, and mental health promotion programs, such as the Work in Mind and the Work in Mind for First Responders, both of which have been built on the R2MR program from the Department of National Defense. Over the past several years, he has worked to develop and pilot the Inquiring in Mind Post-Secondary, a program tailored for post-secondary students. As well, he has developed a junior high school version of the program called the Inquiring Mind Youth. Dr. Szeto also conducts basic research that examines the stigma of mental health and mental illness with social psychological methods and theories, including research on labeling, attitudes, and new interventions to reduce stigma. More recently, his research has focused on post-secondary mental health. He has published academic articles on various topics related to mental health and the stigma of mental illness. Director of the Mental Health Commission of Canada's International Award-winning Anti-Stigma Initiative Opening Minds is Micheal Pietrus. In February 2015, Opening Minds received the Innovator Award for the organizers of the 7th Together Against Stigma conference in San Francisco as the program which creates a major impact through new approaches that inspire new possibilities and/or disrupts prevailing views. He's also the Director of Mental Health First Aid Canada. Under Michael's leadership, the Commission launched Open Minds, its anti-stigma, anti-discrimination initiative in 2019, which is the largest systematic effort to reduce the stigma of mental illness in Canadian history. He was appointed Director of Mental Health First Aid Canada in July 2015. Micheal and his team have developed a variety of evidence-based anti-stigma programs that have proven to be effective in key areas such as the workplace, healthcare, youth, and media. He has presented on his team anti-stigma research and programs at conferences in Canada, the US, Europe, Asia, and Australia. He is a co-founder of the Global Anti-Stigma Alliance, which is composed of more than a dozen international organizations working to reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. We're honored to welcome both of you. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'll hand it over to you, Micheal.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that kind introduction. You're going to have to bear with me because I'm experiencing some technical issues, and We'll have to walk you through the slides because I can't see them right now myself. I seem to be logged out, hoping you're able to hear me. So just to start with, if we can move over to the next slide, which is the introduction. What we'd like to do is just sort of set the scene for you and provide you with some background, a little bit about Opening Minds and the Mental Health Commission of Canada and the work that we've undertaken. So really it's just the scene setter for you, as well as making the business case. One of the critical areas that we're going to be talking about is stigma, and stigma is viewed as a major barrier, and you'll get an understanding of how it has a dramatic impact on the lives of people dealing with mental health problems or mental illness. At the same time, we're going to be talking about the data or evidence base in terms of the effectiveness of the programs. And if we can leave you with two key findings or two key points, if you're looking at programs, make sure that they're evidence-based and more than just superficial evidence, such as customer satisfaction, but really looking at the outcomes of the program. And secondly, about cultural change. And we'll also have some time for questions as well. So hoping to get that as well in there. So by way of background, Opening Minds is an initiative of the Mental Health Commission of Canada. It's the largest initiative of its kind, the largest systematic effort to reduce stigma associated with mental illness. And we were founded in 2009. That's when we launched the program. Interestingly, at that time, there was very little work being done around the stigma associated with mental illness. And I think the organizers of the commission thought that we were going to undertake a sort of a marketing campaign, very typical of what's done to sort of inform people about particular issues. And when we did our research, we've in fact found that that wasn't the case, that in fact, campaigns, marketing campaigns really aren't effective. They're very expensive. And once the campaign ends, people forget about the messages that you're trying to get across. And we also face a very crowded space when it comes to health issues. You're also dealing with organizations that are promoting cancer, that are promoting kidney disease and other things like that. So a very crowded space. And at the same time, if we were to look at doing some of the more typical media campaigns, television, for example, you're again dealing with a very crowded space because we have our American neighbors to the south who beam in a lot of programming and would really, not allow us to get the full access of the Canadian audience that we're looking for. So again, we were launched in 2009. And the approach that we decided to take was, rather than reinventing the wheel, we wanted to discover if there were other programs out there that were dealing with this particular area. And at the same time, we wanted to evaluate those programs to see if in fact they were effective. The first two areas that we were working with were youth and healthcare providers. Youth because of the importance of early intervention, healthcare providers because some of the worst stigmatization involving mental health takes place on the front lines of the healthcare system. Next, workplace was added, and then the media. Workplace because people spend more waking hours rather at work than any other place, and people also relate to their jobs, and it's a very important part of who they are. And the media because of the important role the media plays in shaping public opinion. Just a little bit of the background. So just some basic facts to sort of bring you up to speed. 1 in 5 Canadians in any given year will experience a mental health problem or mental illness. And if you look at it, it's probably even greater than that number. It could be 1 in 4, 1 in 3, and that's associated with stigma, with people not coming forward and necessarily talking or revealing that in fact they may be having mental health issues. Interestingly, it's estimated right now that 28% of people between the ages of 20 and 29 actually experience mental health issues in any given year. And if you take a look at it over the course of a lifetime, your odds are likely somewhere between 48 to 49% that likely you will experience a mental health problem within your lifetime. So even if you're not affected by a mental illness in terms of experiencing it yourself, you can find that you may know somebody, a loved one, a neighbor, colleague at work. So there's really no escaping mental illness. It's such a pervasive problem. The World Health Organization has declared a global mental health crisis, and it projects that by 2030, that lifestyle and stress related illnesses, or rather that lifestyle and stress related illness will surpass communicable diseases. So that's amazing to see that things have moved that way. Both the WHO and the International Labor Organization are on record as identifying mental health issues as legitimate workplace concerns. And what they also suggested is that employers and managers need to know more. They need to understand disability legislation. In fact, that's one of the critical areas that seems to be lacking, and the need to make accommodations. They also need to develop policies and programs, provide access to services such as EAPs, and also provide education training. So again, when you have organizations like that that are now on the record, in fact, at one point, the World Health Organization said that depression would be the leading cause of disability by 2030. They actually hit that mark in 2017. So things have been changing that much, and we can only imagine what this whole COVID situation has had in terms of its impact on the mental health of employees. Important to note as well, the connection between work and mental health. So we're now on that slide. There are three types of workplaces that are linked with a higher incidence of mental health problems. Workplaces that are considered unjust, where employees don't feel that they're treated fairly, or in fact, there's bullying involved and things of that nature within the workplace. The other type of workplace is one where rewards don't match demands. In other words, people believe that they're working very hard and not being remunerated justly for that. Last but not least is there are jobs with very high demands, and you could think of jobs, for example, in call centers, for example, where people are subjected to a lot of stress and pressure from clients, as an example, and that can also lead to mental health issues. So again, take a look at those, and in some cases, you've actually got all three taking place within the workplace. Next is a survey that was done last year by the Globe and Mail and Morneau Shepell. It involved about 1,600 employees that were surveyed, and a third of Canadians in the workplace said that stress in the workplace was the primary cause of their mental illness, and 3/4 basically reported that mental health problems have already affected or would affect their careers. 66% said that employers don't have anti-stigma programs or policies within the workplace, and 75% said that they weren't aware of any type of mental health strategy involved in their particular workplace. So again, it's an area where a lot of work still has to be done. We want to take a look at another way of looking at the cost of mental health and its impact, and mental illness and its impact on the Canadian economy. It costs the Canadian economy $51 billion annually. And that can be broken down in terms of cost of health cost services, medication, the employer, absenteeism, disabilities such as presenteeism. People are on the job but perhaps shouldn't be there or aren't functioning at an optimum level. Another way of also looking at it, in any given week, more than 500,000 Canadians are off the job because of mental illness and mental health issues. So again, with the COVID situation that we're dealing with right now, you could just imagine the impact that this is having on individuals. So stigma, why talk about stigma? Well, stigma is seen as a major barrier for people reporting whether or not they actually have a mental illness and will seek treatment. Stigma, in fact, many people who have mental illnesses will report that the stigma that they experience is often worse than the illness itself. And we know that about 2/3 of Canadians living with a mental illness or mental health problems won't come forward and seek help, again, because they're afraid of being stigmatized because of the illness that they're dealing with.
Oh my God, is he okay?
Come on, look at him. He's fine. She's not even bleeding.
He's probably just looking for attention.
Ah, he's just lazy.
Oh, come on, man. I don't have time for this.
So just to give you an idea about the delay that takes place in terms of people actually seeking treatment, if I was to go out at lunchtime today and walk off the curb and twist my ankle and not sure, and it was very painful and I wasn't sure whether it was broken or just sprained, I'd probably go to my doctor or clinic as quickly as possible. Now take a look in terms of the mental injury or mental illness, the delay involved. Research shows that in terms of someone seeking treatment, it's 6 to 8 years for a mood disorder and 9 to 23 years before somebody will seek treatment or support for anxiety disorders. And stigma plays a large role in that. It's not the only reason for it. Sometimes there's access to service as one example, but it is a major factor in terms of why people don't seek help. And the longer someone goes without seeking help, the more complicated treatment gets and the less successful it's going to be. So why reduce the stigma of mental illness in the workplace? Let me walk you through some of the factors that work in your favor. So first of all, reducing stigma promotes early help seeking. Early help seeking, early intervention, the better the prognosis and the better the outcome. When we're also looking at stigma, by reducing stigma in the workplace, you increase productivity. People are willing to come forward much sooner, get treatment, and therefore it has a much more positive impact in terms of their productivity. I mentioned a bit earlier about cultural shift or cultural change within an organization and in terms of promoting mental health and mental wellness. You can see that there's greater acceptance of mental health and you create a more supportive environment again, so people are willing to come forward. And also you have positive outcomes for those people with mental illness if they seek help earlier at this time. So there are programs available, and the program we're here to talk to you about today, now that we've set the scene, is The Working Mind, and I'll hand things over to Andrew.
So thank you, Michael, for setting the scene and laying the background. I'm talking a little bit about Opening Minds initiative of the Mental Health Commission of Canada, talking a little bit about workplace mental health and the importance of reducing stigma, especially in the workplace. And so what we're here to talk about today is the Working Mind, which is a program that addresses many of those things that Mike mentioned in the background part. So improving mental health in the workplace, as well as reducing stigma. This program, we started working on this with my colleague, Dr. Keith Dobson, approximately 8 years ago in 2012. We partnered with the Department of National Defense. They had a program called R2MR, or the Road to Mental Readiness, and we took that program and adapted it to the workplace and to first responders. So in professions such as fire, police, paramedics. So we have a Working Mind for the general workplace and the Working Mind for first responders. So I'll talk about the Working Mind, but really I'm talking about both programs. They're both focused on the core content, same core content, and just adapted for the different contexts. So the program itself is focused on these objectives, and first of all, it's focused on reducing the stigma of mental illness. As Mike pointed out, the stigma of mental illness is, something that we need to do we need to reduce in the workplace to increase help seeking and really create that environment that is conducive and caring for everybody. A second objective of the program is to promote mental health in the workplace. A third objective is to reconceptualize how people think and talk about mental health and mental illnesses, and I'll show you how we do that in some upcoming slides. Another objective of the program is to help one identify poor mental health in themselves and how to support their peers when they're experiencing poor mental health. One of the most important aspects of the program is to actually teach skills, coping skills, strategies to manage stress and poor mental health, and to increase resiliency. And finally, what we want to do with the program is to create a more supportive working environment for everybody who's in the workplace. And to achieve these three objectives, there's three main components of the program that I'll run through quickly. What I'll do is show you a video that talks about the mental health continuum model. And I would argue this is one of the most important components, if not the most important component of the program. And I'll show you a short video that talks about, introduces the mental health continuum.
Your mental health is an essential part of your well-being. Looking after your mental health is just as important as looking after your physical health. In the past, a person was either viewed as mentally well or unwell. Now, we know that mental health is not a static state. Rather, it is always changing along with every other aspect of our lives. The mental health continuum offers some general indicators you can use to track your own mental health and wellness.
We are constantly moving forward and backwards along the continuum ranging from green to red. Let's follow Gina's and Fred's stories using the continuum to illustrate changes in their mental health and wellness.
Meet Gina, a 28-year-old single woman who is driven and passionate about her career as an account executive with a large advertising firm.
Meet Fred, a 60-year-old semi-retired man who has been running his own landscaping business for the last 30 years.
Gina loves her career and has always enjoyed keeping busy with friends and her hobbies. She supervises a team of 5. She is patient with her staff, helping them to grow and learn in their roles, while using mistakes as learning opportunities. Gina would say she's always been a happy enough person.
Fred's business is successful. He and his wife Janet enjoy spending time together, and he's proud of his new grandson. Fred has had some mental health challenges for the majority of his life. He feels content, but occasionally he has what he calls low times, where he struggles with visible mood changes.
Recently, Gina has been more irritable at work. She lacks the patience she used to have with her employees. When she is out with friends, she is a little more sarcastic than she once was. When she was out with her best friend Sam, who is very slim, Sam ordered a salad, and Gina snapped.
This summer, Fred is winding down his business to spend more time with his family. He's been excited about taking this step, but he's feeling sad a lot of the time. He misses the thrill of new projects and long days. He finds it difficult to enjoy the time with his family and has been sleeping longer and longer. He's not doing the things he expected to do as he headed into retirement because he feels so low and unmotivated.
Lately, Gina has been feeling more frustrated at work. Recently, one of our staff, Gideon, sent a document to a client with a typo on the title page. When Gina found out, she yelled at him. "I knew I shouldn't have trusted someone so junior on this account. I should just do everything myself." She is so exhausted in the evenings. She's avoiding her friends. Instead, she is going home each night to stare mindlessly at the TV, hoping she'll fall asleep.
Fred remembers a time when he felt paralyzed and unable to function. He had stopped communicating with Janet and their daughter and one day broke down and could not stop crying. Afraid he may be heading in that direction again, Fred decides to talk to Janet about it. She shares that she has been concerned, and after talking, Fred decides to take some time to practice some of the coping techniques that helped him all those years ago.
Gina is afraid to talk to anyone about her current situation. She has never felt so angry and annoyed with the world in her life, and she doesn't know what's happening. One night, Sam shows up at Gina's apartment and shares how worried she is about her friend. She suggests Gina go talk to her GP. Gina feels scared and furious. She tells Sam, "Mind your own business and get out of my house."
As Fred starts to feel better, he realizes how he expected his retirement to be, and he's disappointed in himself for not enjoying it more. Fred and Janet discuss these challenges and agree to support each other.
Gina took Sam's advice and decided to see her doctor, who suggested she take some time off. She really struggled with this decision because she had always tied her identity to her job. Finally, Gina agreed to take a week off and begin to see a counselor.
Fred is managing well. When he becomes overly stressed or feels a low time coming on, he uses the techniques he learned. He and Janet have recently purchased an RV and are looking forward to driving it across the country.
Gina has been doing much better too. Seeing the therapist helped her realize that she sometimes takes on too much and that setting limits is a part of being strong. Gina met with Sam and apologized for some of her past behaviors and shared that she really values Sam's friendship and ongoing support.
Fred and Gina are only two examples of movement on the mental health continuum. At any given time, everyone is on it somewhere. It's important to realize when you're moving too far to the right and to learn the skills that help you maintain or regain your mental health and well-being.
So I'll share my screen again. There we go. Yeah, it never failed. If people saw me go off the screen, the phone rang. It never fails when I have a Zoom call or a meeting or webinar. That always happens. So that was actually here. That was a. Get back. Okay, so that video was an excellent summary of the mental health continuum model. The video showed Fred and Gina going through the continuum, moving from good to poor along a gradient. The video itself mentioned previous conceptions was either or, but the continuum really makes it into a continuum or a gradient. And there's an emphasis on the back to forth movement along the continuum. We can move down to the right of the continuum towards red, but with the proper supports, resources, skills, and help, we can move back to the green, and that's really one of the most important points of the continuum. Another important point of the continuum is that it eliminates the need for stigmatizing labels or not diagnosing by a professional, or not diagnosing by non-professionals diagnosing. We're using colors here. We're using health reacting injured ill. We're not using labels like depression or anxiety disorder or schizophrenia. We're talking about colors here. One interesting story, when working with first responders and working with police, for example, they're quite receptive to using this. And we hear stories of officers going out to their superiors and using, I think I'm red or I think I'm injured. So it really, that really shows the importance and how easy it is to talk about mental health using alternative language. And finally, you didn't see it in the video, but the mental health continuum, shows the 4 colors, but it also shows different indicators along 5 domains of functioning along each of the colors. So we talk about things like emotions, we talk about attitudes and thinking, we talk about behavioral things as well as physical things. So the mental health continuum is really, really an important tool that reduces stigma, but also talks about mental health, poor mental health, and good mental health. A second main component of the program are the big 4 skills. So I alluded to this earlier, and there are 4 skills that we teach in the program. Goal setting is one of them, and it's really more specifically SMART goal setting. We all make goals, or we all set goals, but are we setting the goals properly? Are we making the goals most efficient? And using SMART goal setting, so specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals really helps with our goals and help improve our goal setting and improve our efficiency and productivity. A second technique is visualization, more specifically mental rehearsal. And when I talk about mental rehearsal, it's really going through in your mind, practicing something for the future, right? And really figuring out the what ifs. So for example, a workplace example, if you have an annual performance meeting with your supervisor, and you want to bring up a promotion opportunity, you would, first of all, think about the situation and think about all the things that you're going to say, all the questions that your supervisor might ask you, and what your answers are. And again, this really helps you prepare, think about the what ifs, and really reduces stress and anxiety for you when that situation actually occurs. The third skill that we teach in the program is positive self-talk or self-talk. This is really based on CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. And what we want to do in the program is to teach individuals to understand when they're speaking negatively to ourselves, because we talk to ourselves all the time, and a lot of that speech that we talk to ourselves with is negative. So what we want to do is identify when that happens and replace that with positive self-talk. As well, in the program, we teach people to understand when they might be thinking more biased or engaging in cognitive distortions or things like that. So we teach individuals to really think about how to identify that, to challenge it, and to replace it with more non-biased thinking. And finally, deep breathing is the final technique. Deep breathing or diaphragmatic breathing is another important skill that we teach. We know this technique is very important, especially in the moment, to really calm down when we're, for example, in a stressful situation in a fight or flight response. I use this technique quite a bit also in my personal life. For example, I do play hockey. I am a goalie, and I'm not a very good goalie. But when we're up, for example, by one with 2 minutes left, we have a face-off in our zone. My heart starts to pound. I get nervous, and I really use deep breathing to calm myself and really prepare for that moment and those final 2 minutes. So those are really 4 techniques that I use myself and have used and are effective and are evidence-based techniques that we teach in the program to help really to mitigate stress, to help improve productivity, and to better impact and positive mental health. And finally, the last component of the program is really focused on stigma reduction. There's a series of videos throughout the program, and it really focuses on the journeys of individuals with lived experience of mental illness and mental health, and really follows their journey. And I'll play you one of these videos as an example.
Got leveled out on some medication and started doing acceptance commitment therapy. And, it just made a world of difference. 2.5 years later, 3 years later, new person. I got my legs back underneath me, and I got my confidence back. I couldn't believe when I actually went and attended the Working Minds training last fall, and I thought, this is fabulous. It allows me to know that, hey, if I do have an issue, I can go and talk to my boss about it. When you're in that type of work environment, it does make you feel safe, and it makes you feel good.
I went back to school, and I'm also an advocate for mental health. I don't think I would have been if I hadn't been in that situation and been on that side to see what it was like.
My recovery process is still ongoing. I've become a new version of myself, as I like to call it, and I've come to a place where I really like this new version of myself. I find that I'm more patient, I'm more understanding, but there's always that piece that I need to be aware of. I need to be aware of triggers. I need to be aware of when life becomes a bit overwhelming. I need to remember that I might have the tendency to really bury myself in the busyness of life and forget about my own self-care. And so when times are busy or if stress is high, I really need to take a step back and focus on myself in order to make sure that I don't get down the path of being depressed again.
I consider myself extremely lucky. I think that part of the reason that I am as healthy as I am today is the strong support network that I have. Certainly close friends and definitely family. There was nothing that my parents wouldn't do to get me better once they knew that I wasn't well. And they would take me to, any appointment. They would, support me in any way that they could. And that made such a huge difference, knowing that they believed that I could get well. Could and would, and did. I am better than I ever thought I could be. For many years, I didn't think I would ever get better. I would have days that were maybe slightly better than others, but mostly I was better off dead. And now I live a life such that I think anybody should live. I wake up in the morning and I'm happy that I woke up. I don't really know how much better to say that, then I want to live. And I never thought that I would feel that way. And I went so long not even knowing what that felt like that I hardly even knew what it was when it happened.
Anxiety, I think, will be with me forever. It's one of those things that I have to learn to live with, and I have good days and bad days, but I've learned to manage it. And then there's weeks and months where I'm just doing really, really well. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort. I was dealing with my own stigma of, I don't have this, I don't have time to have this, this is a weakness. And for me to learn and understand that having anxiety or any mental illness is not a weakness. And one of the most courageous things that an individual can do is to say that I'm not fine. I do need some support and I do need help. And there's no weakness in those statements.
Okay, so that's the video. I'll share my screen again. Okay, so that video was really, again, focused on the theme of support and recovery. Recovery is such an important theme within through the program. We also know from our research with some of our colleagues at Opening Minds that having that recovery narrative in there is such an important part of reducing stigma. So I talked a little bit about the content. I'll quickly go through our evaluation research. I see in the question, the chat box, there's a question about the impact or effectiveness of the program. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I won't spend too much. Here's our evaluation design for the programs. We do pre, post, and 3-month follow-up. And we really look at the main components or the main outcomes of the program: stigma reduction, resiliency. We have some workplace-related culture measures in there as well. And we do some qualitative items in there as well, program perceptions. We also did a key informant study. I won't talk about that today. There's 2 papers that were published in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry detailing these 2 evaluations. I will only show you the results for the Working Mind, but just to give you the background, there was in the Working Mind workplace version of the program, there was about 1,300 participants in that evaluation, and in the first responder version of the program, there's over 5,600 or about 5,600 participants. The main outcome variable of stigma reduction, what we did was from pre to post, we saw a significant reduction in stigmatizing attitudes. And this at the follow-up was reduced as well. It was mostly retained. There's a little bit of regression going back to the mean, but it's still significantly different from baseline. And Mike will talk a little bit about what we've done to really address that regression to the mean or back to the baseline with some of our boosters. Resiliency skills, the program does significantly improve resiliency skills from pre to post as well. This is mostly retained at the 3-month follow-up. And, there's, again, a little bit of a regression back to baseline, but it was still significantly different from baseline. At 3 months, what we asked participants was, have you used any of the skills or aspects of the program that you've learned? And a majority of the participants have used it. Approximately 70% of the participants use some aspect of the program after taking the program. Here's an indication of what they use, the mental continuum model. They used the skills and the information to provide support or empathy to another. They were more open to talk about mental health, the Big 4 skills, and a lot of other components of the program. Here are some qualitative comments. I won't read them. I'll let you read them yourself. But one important impact of the program is, and I'll tell you a story, a little story, quick story. This happened during one of our pilots at a police organization. And there's the organizer of the program that sat in the back of the room. The program was going on and they were teaching about the continuum. And the organizer looked at his phone and saw a text from somebody sitting in the program itself saying that he was in the red and he needed help. So that really, again, shows you some of the impact of the program. And these comments really talk about supporting others or supporting oneself through various coping strategies or the mental health continuum model. I want to just quickly highlight a new trial that was just recently conducted. It was a randomized controlled trial with Nova Scotia Health Authority. It was an immediate versus delayed control. And essentially what we found was that there was stigma reduction, there was increases in resiliency, and changes were actually retained at 3-month follow-up as well. This is just another piece of evidence to support the impact and importance of the program. And one couple of notable things is compared to the research I just talked about, it's more impactful in the sense that there's a larger effect size for the effects that I talked about, and the design of this was more rigorous. So again, what we're finding is the programs are impactful, they're effective in decreasing stigma, increasing resiliency, and improving general mental health and well-being. We saw some of the comments that we talked about. The program itself, since its launch, has been given to over 200,000 participants, employees and managers in over 800 organizations. And the program has expanded beyond Canada and is currently implementing in the States and in Australia. So I'll hand it over back to Mike here.
Thanks, Andrew. In terms of next steps, if we can move to the next slide, we've got a question that was asked around adaptations. And really what we have in the way of adaptations is that we've been able to develop the program in such a way that it works for a variety of different sectors. So we have the working mind as far as the energy sector, for example, the banking sector. So it moves that way very well. We've also, as Andrew suggested, have it for the working mind first responders. We're dealing with most major police services, fire, paramedics, Canada Border Services, et cetera, across the country. So the program is very, very adaptable, and we've also developed a version for post-secondary students and are in the process right now of developing a program for high school students as well. Lessons learned, we've learned a lot in terms over the years that the program has been available. One-offs don't work. Lunch and learns often don't work. You'll see an initial effect change and people will pick up on it, but unless you're able to get people using the program on a regular basis, hence the importance of booster sessions, a lot of the benefits and progress that's been made will drop off, and that's one of the key ingredients that we use with the working mind is ongoing booster sessions. So if you can change the slide. So here you can see some of the programs that we've done, we've had adaptations for. And the adaptations, basically, we change the case studies within those adaptations and make it more specific to the audience that we're trying to deal with. If you could change the slide. So again, these are some of the factors that we have that not all of the programs are created equally. Again, the importance of looking at the evidence base around the programs. Again, if you could change the slide, please. So if you're looking at the return on investment, which is something that's important to a lot of organizations, last October, Deloitte did a study which showed that for every dollar invested, you get $2 return on that investment. And so there is a significant ROI when you begin to implement mental health programs. We've seen the same kind of research share, the same kind of results in Australia as an example. You could change the slide. I wish I could tell you that there was a silver bullet or magic pill. There isn't, so it's good to look at a lot of different programs. One of the other programs developed by the Mental Health Commission of Canada is a national strategy for psychological health and safety. It's a free program, it's voluntary, and to help you with that, there is a guide called Assembling the Pieces, and we will soon be offering assistance to organizations to help implement the national standard, which provides a framework or a strategy going forward. If you could change the slide, please. Another program as well is shown to be very effective is mental health first aid. It's a little bit different where the Working Mind is a self-assessment tool directed at the individual. Mental health first aid actually helps people in terms of being able to deal with a crisis situation. So it's very effective within the workplace or even in your personal lives. It gives you the confidence because you have the training in terms of how to respond to a crisis, much like you would if it was a physical first aid crisis. So those are some of the programs that are available out there. You change the slide, please. So here's more information available to you in terms of about the programs, and certainly we're happy to answer more information at the Mental Health Commission of Canada. Change the slide, please. Just want to leave you with one last thought. Many people don't think that they're going to be dealing with mental illness or a mental health issue. Just leave you with these final thoughts with this video. If you could roll the video, please.
I didn't see you come in.
Yeah, most people don't.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm depression, and I've come for you.
I'm not depressed.
Oh, you're not? What about schizophrenia?
No.
Anxiety disorders?
Uh-uh.
Eating or mood disorders?
No and no.
Oh, my mistake. It's next Tuesday that you lose your job and your boyfriend leaves you.
Again, it gives you the unexpected can happen and can have quite dramatic impact or effects on individuals. So now I think we're happy to open it up to questions.
So thank you so much, Michael and Andrew, for this wonderful presentation. Immediately, we'll start our Q&A session. Our first question is, and I believe you might have answered that, how long does the program last?
It depends. There are a variety of different components. So if you're looking at just training employees, it's a 4-hour program, the Working Mind. If the manager's course is an 8-hour course, the difference between the manager and the employees course is that both learn the basic tools, how to use the continuum. They get the robust anti-stigma module, which shows that people in fact can recover, do recover, and can become really productive members of teams or their community. And then they also learn how to use the coping strategies. In the afternoon, the managers learn about starting that conversation. Oftentimes, it's very difficult to begin that conversation with employees. How to implement an accommodation program. How to introduce somebody back into the workplace or try to keep them in the workplace, because we know that the longer somebody is away from the workplace, the more detrimental it is for that individual. So the more you can keep the individual in the workplace, the better. Oftentimes, though, sometimes people have to go home to recover, whether it's for a few weeks or a few months. But how do you keep in touch with those individuals so they don't feel that they're not important anymore, they're not being considered by the organization or the company? So it's all of those kind of things that managers get to learn in the afternoon. Then there's a train the trainer for those large organizations that want to do their own training. We have a train the trainer course, and right now we're in the process because COVID has obviously changed things quite significantly. We will be doing in this fall virtual training, both for employees and managers, and are looking at a face-to-face or a face-to-face train the trainer program. That one's a bit more challenging to do virtually because it's a 5-day course versus the half-day course or 8-hour course. The virtual session actually for the managers will be actually a little bit less. It'll be 6.5 hours.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next question. So has this program been implemented in workplaces? Has it been successful? And is it a one fit for all industries?
Actually, the program is very successful. We have over 800 organizations that are using the program right now, and it's actually gained legs and is being delivered in Australia and the United States as well. And I think to a large degree, it's because of the important work that Andrew and the other researchers have done around the program in terms of showing that it is evidence-based, that it does work, and it does deliver on the outcomes. And so the program can be adapted as well. So we have a variety of different organizations and companies and groups that are using the program, from the energy sector, banking sector, health sector, What we're able to do is adapt elements or components of the program so that it actually fits to the particular sector. And that's been particularly helpful. So it can be adapted. A lot of organizations, and as Andrew mentioned a bit earlier, more than 200,000 people have been trained using the program, both the Working Mind First Responder and the Working Mind for the general workforce, and the Inquiring Mind for post-secondary students.
Yeah, and just to add on to Mike's, comments about adaptation, I think one of the most important things that we alluded to is or scenarios that we work through at the end, really to apply the learnings and to reinforce the information and skills. Those are adaptable for different sectors and organizations.
And to add on to that, one of the things that we found in the research is the importance of supplements or booster sessions, because the studies showed that 3 months out, people retained most of the information and training they had. But when it got to 6 months, you began to see people, regression in terms of people starting to drift back to old habits and old beliefs and ways of doing things. So if you continue to encourage people to use what they've learned and you provide them with the tools to do that, which we provide as part of the training, then you can actually make it part of the normal culture and it becomes part of the organization. People are less reluctant to come forward for help, and at the same time, you have much more supportive environment for people to work within.
Congratulations on the success of this program. And moving on to the next question. So what barriers and facilitators do you or did you run into when developing such programs?
That's interesting. I think there was a reluctance at the very beginning, and Andrew could talk more about this because in the early days, encouraging companies or convincing companies about the importance of reducing stigma, building resilience in their employees, addressing the whole issue of mental health. And back in 2013, when we started a lot of the work around this, mental health didn't seem to be an important issue. It's interesting now to see the impact that COVID is having, and I've never seen more discussion around mental health in the workplace and concern about the mental health of not only employees, but family members and other individuals who are out there because of the things that they're dealing with: isolation, loss of jobs, deaths in the family, all of those kind of things. Andrew?
Sorry, my phone is going off, so you just.
Okay. So again, there was that reluctance, but it's interesting. We don't advertise the program, and yet the uptake on the program has been tremendous, and it's basically been because of the success of the program and because people are willing to talk about it, and that's how we've grown so large.
Perfect, thank you. And the next question is, do you find that individuals prefer to not label their mental illness as depression or anxiety, but prefer to use the continuum model?
Yes, absolutely. The whole concept of using colors. We've got some organizations that have fed back stories to us anecdotally that they have little color squares that they put on their office doors or cubicles to sort of let people know how they're feeling that particular day. Yeah, using colors takes the stigmatizing language, those scary diagnostic terms of schizophrenia, bipolar, things of that nature, depression, anxiety. And now you're talking about, well, I'm feeling in the yellow today, or I'm a little bit orange, I didn't get as much sleep as I wanted last night. People understand that, and that's been particularly effective and really normalizes things quite a bit and makes them less threatening.
Yeah, and just to add on that, when we're experiencing poor mental health and not a diagnosable mental illness, it's not appropriate to use those labels anyways, right? So I think using the colors of the continuum really makes it simple and easy. And when you say you're in the green or the red or the yellow or whatever color, the person, if they've taken the program, who is talking to that person, understands what to do to support that person, right, as well.
And by the time you get into the red, we recommend that you may have a diagnosable mental illness. And even though you're applying the coping strategies, it's a good time to sort of seek professional help or professional support. That's what you really want. Those are the people who can create, who will make a diagnosis for you. But otherwise, a lot of the factors or indicators that Andrew talked about, sleep, mood changes, things of that nature, are so commonsensical that it's very easy to sort of determine whether you're feeling well or whether you're beginning to slip or slide towards the red zone. So again, very, very simple. And I think that's part of the effectiveness of the program is we hear time and time and time again about the colors and the continuum.
Thank you. And maybe one last question. What other practices or recommendations do you suggest to reduce stigma around mental illness?
Andrew, I'll let you take that one.
Sure, I'll take that one. Yeah, I think there are a lot of different things. I think one of the most important things, and Mike alluded to it at the end of the presentation, was a standard, right? The standard is a comprehensive framework that addresses mental health at a broad organizational level. You know, we can implement programs, and there are no silver bullets. You know, implementing programs like the Working Mind or Mental Health First Aid is one part or one aspect of it. But if you really want that culture to shift, it has to be all encompassing. It has to be a mental health strategy or some kind of framework that improves, addresses mental health, you know, at various levels within an organization. So for example, looking at policies, processes, and practices through a mental health lens is an important part of this overall approach, right? The programs we talked about is one aspect of it, but other aspects of it are maybe, again, at policy level or at the structural level, and those are really important to reduce the stigma.
And as part of the standard, there are 14 psychosocial factors that need to be addressed. And if one of those is out of sync, it can have a dramatic impact on the rest of them. But a very simple thing to look at as well is language. And, you know, language can be very hurtful and very harmful and actually contributes to self-stigma. So getting away from using terms like crazy, nuts, etc. All of those kind of things are very harmful or hurtful to people and can set a tone so that people are reluctant to come forward because it's all about those labels. People don't want to be considered as weak, as broken. And I think if we're conscious about the language we're using, I think that goes a long way to helping as well.
Perfect. Thank you for ending on such a strong note. And thank you, Andrew and Michael, immensely for sharing your expertise with us and shedding some light on the Working Mind program and how it can reduce mental illness stigma. Immediately following the session, you will be directed to the evaluation survey. We greatly appreciate your input on our webinar as well as suggestions for future topic areas. So thank you to our audience for being so active in asking questions. Our next webinar is titled Building a Workplace to Support Aging Workers, and it's presented by Ellie Roma Gardiner, organizational psychologist and lecturer at the School of Management at Queensland University of Technology in Australia. It will be held Wednesday, July 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Please visit our website for more details at workwellnessinstitute.org and register for free. All of our webinars are accessible to the public. Thank you again for your participation. And thank you so much, Andrew and Michael, for your valuable time. Stay safe and take care of yourselves.
Thanks for your interest. Bye-bye.